All right, welcome back to the podcast, everyone. Today we have a very special guest. We have Ivy the Occultist. I have been wanting to get her onto the show since I discovered her channel. So if you guys do not know much about Ivy, I will let her introduce herself a little bit and get you a little bit more familiar with her. And then we can dive into the extra special episode of the um, my most unpopular witchy opinions. So we have a few here, and I think this is going to be a really great dialogue to start conversations around why do we think things have to be a certain way? Can we start changing our mindsets and opening up a little bit and not being so strict with the way we do things? So Ivy, definitely go ahead. The floor is yours.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Rhiannon, first and foremost, for having me on the podcast. I'm really excited to be here. And how do I introduce myself? I'm a chaos magician, first and foremost, but I do a lot of different things. I'm a witch, I'm a psychic, I'm a shamanic practitioner, and kind of dabble in all things occult. So I have a YouTube channel called Ivy the Occultist, and I just kind of settled on that name because it encompasses everything that I do. So that's that. But yeah, I'm excited to talk about some unpopular opinions today because I mean, you're not going to make everyone happy with these opinions, right? But I think it's important to, like you said, at least open the dialogue and have conversations about it and see where other perspectives may come in. And yeah, I think that's helpful. I don't know if you want me to just dive right in to my first one.
Sure. So let's preface this here with I'm reserving the right for us to be able to change our opinions with this. So these are our opinions and they're gonna flow and change as we grow as people and practitioners. So this is just something to kind of get the dialogue started and make people think a little bit more as opposed to just believing whatever they're told or what they read. And just make them second guess it and say, hey, do I really believe that? But yeah, feel free to, if you feel a little offended about this, it's not a personal attack at all. It's just our personal stance at the moment. But yeah, do you want to dive into your first unpopular opinion?
Yes, definitely. I'm glad that you said that too, because as a chaos magician, for me, I am constantly changing my mind. That's the whole point. So, I mean, anything I say today, you're absolutely right. I may change my mind in the future. Who knows? But I guess this is how we are today. I was kind of debating whether I should start with the most spicy or the least spicy. So I think I'm just gonna start with like a really, really spicy one. We're just gonna go for it. I am very pro baneful magic. And I
Yes.
know there is the Love and Light community. I have a lot of very close, dear friends that are in the Love and Light community. For me, witches have been cursing and healing for centuries. I think there is a time and a place for baneful magic. I think it can be done in a way that doesn't hurt your psyche or hurt your karma or whatever. And I also think that not everyone believes in the threefold rule, right? Because that's
Yeah.
very Wiccan based. Not all of us are Wiccan. And some of us don't even believe in karma. So I think to push those ideas off onto other people is very dogmatic. And it's a little frustrating sometimes because if you believe in karma or the threefold rule, that's great. That's fine. That's your own paradigm. However, not everyone believes in that. And some people do partake in baneful magic. And I also feel like sometimes baneful magic is very necessary for self-defense.
Yeah.
And when I say that I'm pro baneful magic, I'm not here casting hexes every day. Okay. Like that's not what
Ugh,
I'm about. I mean, if I really look at my magical practice, I'm probably doing a baneful working like once every 5 years as needed because
yeah.
it's there for when you need it, right? It's there for self-defense. And it's not something that I have to be partaking in every single day to still support. So I definitely think that there's a time and a place. There is a balance in this universe with the light and dark. And I think to negate the dark is really to live an unbalanced life. So that's my opinion on that.
Oh, I totally 100% wholeheartedly agree with that one because that's something I hold really near and dear to my heart as a person who steps into the cult and witchcraft with the stance of empowerment, and a lot of that is really what it was a way for people to get themselves through life and into a better place in life. And when you look back on the history of things, there are so many different practitioners and traditions who used a lot of their practices to just help elevate themselves and stay connected to their religious belief sets without being outed for it. And for myself, I definitely agree, for anyone who's hurting you or hurting your loved ones, or has a potential to stand in the way, that negative working is kind of negated, and it's really just personal defense at that point. And there's nothing wrong with defending yourself. I actually get angry if people don't. Because you are your own protector. You need to stand up for yourself. So yeah, definitely agree with that. And on the other side of it as well is, not all negative workings are full on hexes or curses. Some are more of a boundary, and that's something I use quite often. I carry a powder around me at work, and if somebody is stepping a line, I'm throwing that like powder down on the ground where they're going to walk over it. I do not give it. I don't care. That stuff's everywhere, all over. I have protections up at work and everything, and it just makes things go better if you are just thinking about it in a way of just trying to help yourself along, as opposed to trying to hurt someone.
Yep, I totally agree with that. And on the subject of karma, even if we were to believe in karma, which again, not everybody does, I personally, sometimes I believe, sometimes I don't. I kind of believe in just the chaos of the universe, and randomness. But
Yeah.
even if you were to believe in karma, I personally feel that if I'm going to perform some sort of baneful working like a hex or something like that, at that point, I've already paid my dues in my mind, because somebody has been really, really hurting me or someone that I love. And for me, the price has already been paid. And at that point, I'm just setting up firm boundaries. I'm saying no more, and I'm putting an end to a situation. So I just wanted to throw that out there. But yes, agreed to everything you said.
Yes, absolutely. All right, so my first one here would be, I would say man-made materials. So a lot of people in the community believe that man-made materials are not applicable for working in your practice because they are not of the earth. But I highly disagree, because when I first started, I didn't have all the tools or anything like that. And I started off with images that I printed off the computer of crystals and of deities and all that such. And I started meditating on the deities or meditating on the crystals and charging them. And I use those in my spells, just like when people use tarot magic. What's the difference between using tarot magic as a correspondence in your spell, as opposed to something you printed off, or even a crystal oracle card that someone has mass produced and using that in your practice? It's the same thing to me.
Yeah. Okay. So I think my perception on this depends. It depends on what model you're operating from, because if you operate off the psychological model when it comes to magic, then you can use anything. It doesn't matter if it's man-made. It doesn't matter if it's from the earth, because you're operating from your belief in that item working and a belief in your own intention and your own power. And so from that perspective, it really doesn't matter. Although I could see from people that are operating more from like a spirit model, where they're really looking into like the vibrations and frequencies of things, that the things that are more natural of the earth could be said to have a different frequency or vibration than like man-made materials. But there's no objective way for us to even measure that in the first place. So I really, and that I think that we need to use whatever is available and accessible around us. So yes, agreed. No disagreements yet. So yes.
Awesome.
Okay, let's see. So my next unpopular opinion is that spell work is just as powerful if you post it on social media, because there is this, and I have to kind of explain this a little bit, because I've heard from many people that say, well, if you post your spell work online for other people to see, then it's not as powerful. And I don't agree with that. I think it is a personal perspective, of course. If you feel like it's going to be less powerful, then it probably is going to be less powerful because of your belief in that. However, for me personally, I feel posting something online, it almost gains power the more views and the more attention that's given to it. It's a little vampiric in that way. So for me, I do believe that you can still post your spell work on social media and still have it be very effective. And there's other things that you can do as well. You can put extra clauses in your spell work that people don't see. You can set up tripwires around it to protect yourself if you really want to. I mean, people aren't seeing, like when I post a spell online, people aren't seeing everything that I do. They see the bare bones, but they don't see all the little tripwires that I put around it, so you're always safeguarding yourself a little bit. But when people tell me, oh, you're posting all your stuff online, well, your magic's not going to work. And I'm like, okay, but it does.
Yeah.
So
How do
I'm
you
not
think we
worried
got
about
here?
it. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, I definitely agree with that one. For a while when I first started, I was like, oh yeah, I can't really share this. And then it made me feel more isolated. And I feel like it's a little bit of a fear tactic, so people aren't sharing their knowledge as much or feeling like they can as well. But yeah, I definitely agree that I've found it becomes more powerful in a lot of senses. It becomes its own egregore in a lot of ways for me, where it becomes its own entity in itself. Especially things like Witch of Wonderlust. She posted a sigil video and shared some of her sigils and allowed others to use it. And I feel like the more that people are viewing that video and are trying things, the more powerful that sigil is becoming, because I'm using it and I can see it, and I'm not doing anything other than just working with it plainly, and it's
Yes.
still expanding. So I agree.
Yeah, that's how we get these super powerful symbols that transcend, centuries of people using them, because everybody's using the same symbol over and over for the same intention. That's just more people feeding their power into that spell work. So yeah, totally great. And side note, I love Witch of Wonderlust. She's amazing. So
Me
yeah.
too.
Yes.
There's definitely one of those witches up there that I would love to get to know one day.
Yes.
Okay. My next one would be you don't have to cast a circle every time you do a spell. This one I feel like comes a little bit from a lot of Wicca practices where it is ingrained in their teachings to cast every time that they practice. But coming from more of a traditional folk witch practice, I am practicing all day long. I did it when I did my coffee. I was enchanting it. I was waiting for you to come on. I do it when I'm cleaning my dishes. I do it when I'm sweeping my floor. I am constantly working something. And it doesn't have to be something where it's all pretty and tied up in a bow, where I'm like, here, look at my thing that I made. I have to protect it and not nothing in. Also, on the other side of it is sometimes you want those things in. Sometimes you're just putting up a barrier because you don't want the things that might be attracted to that in, or if you're working with a negative spirit or something a little bit more ominous, you don't want them to come into your personal space. So it depends on what you're wanting to do. So I don't believe you have to do it all the time.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. And I think it really depends on how elaborate I'm being. Like if I'm going to do a full ceremonial magic thing with planetary magic, I've got a bunch of moving pieces. I'll probably cast a circle just to contain the energy before I'm ready to like send it out for a release. But I feel like I'm very similar to you in that I use a lot of folk magic practices day to day. Like I'm not doing ceremonial magic every day, and I'm not casting a circle every single time I do that, because I don't have time for that.
It's exhausting.
Yeah. And I will say that circles can be super helpful. I think I did a video. It was like the 7 witchy things that I don't do or something. So if anybody's here that has already seen that video, this might be a little redundant, but I do use circles for when I'm working with spirits, because you can kind of isolate who it is that you're talking to a little bit. You can kind of like kick everyone out of the space and then only invite in the specific entities that you do want to work with. So that's the only time I will really cast a circle. But other than that, yeah, agreed.
Awesome. Let's do next
Wow,
one.
I was really prepared to come in here with like a huge argument or something, and just really debate it out. But
Wouldn't that be spicy? But I don't know. I feel like I'm a little bit more of an occultist mindset than I realized. The more I watch your channel, I'm like, do I need to shift my mindset a bit more? Or I don't know. Am I everything?
It's so hard to find a label. Like I couldn't just settle on witch, because I don't just do witchcraft. And so it's hard, there's so many different magic avenues. Okay, so let's see. Oh, this one's going to be really spicy.
Ooh.
So it is my unpopular opinion that people need to stop relying on others so much to tell them what is a sign or what's not a sign, because signs are very, very personal. And I understand from a beginner's perspective, if they're coming in and they just genuinely don't know what's a sign. And so they're asking, hey, I need some help here. I need some clarity. And that's not necessarily what I'm talking about. That makes sense to me. But it's the people that start relying on everyone else's opinions for every single sign that comes up in their life. That's where I'm like, okay, you need to do some introspection. You need to figure out what this sign personally means to you, because I can't tell you that. It's kind of like dream interpretations. Like I can kind of help you and give you the gist, but really it's your subconscious mind. It's your world. And I can't tell you what's what. You have to figure that out for yourself. So yeah.
My gosh, I have that one on my list.
Oh,
that one like
nice.
bothers me so much because I get a lot of questions almost daily, and I don't mind helping. That's literally why I'm here doing it. But it's the things where you're not relying on your own intuition that bothers me, because the whole point of stepping into this role is to be independent in yourself. And I feel like it's a different kind of language for every person. Everyone's interpretation is going to be a different language. Mine might be something that is like from the planet Mars, and someone else might be from Mercury. I don't know, but I can't understand it. I might think it looks like this, but it might looks like something completely different. So it's you can get your opinion heard and maybe some ideas, but I definitely don't think that reaching out for everyone else's opinion is always good, because I feel like it can skew your own personal opinion and maybe steer you down a road that is not necessarily meant to be walked.
Yes. Yep. I totally agree with that. And it's really, I feel for beginners though, too, because when you go into like the world of the occult or witchcraft, it's so overwhelming. I get why there's all these questions. Like you really don't know what's what. And if a beginner is watching this video, what I would normally say for signs is that if multiple interesting and curious events are happening within like a 1 to 2 week period, then I would take a closer look. But if it's just like a one-off random sign, I would usually vote the mundane over the magical, you know. I mean, one sign in isolation can be a sign, I guess, but I always try to go with mundane over magical first. But yeah, it's hard to interpret for sure.
Yeah, most definitely.
Was that mine or yours? I think that was mine.
That
I
was
think it's your
yours.
turn. Okay.
Let's see here. Okay, this one comes to the realm of people like yourself and mine who are a little bit more in this for like the long haul, more of a career aspect. This is something that we are deeply passionately pulled towards. So a lot of people I have been seeing believe that you do not or should not profit off of your knowledge of the occult. And I definitely disagree. I believe that the time that I spend researching this information is time that I'm spending in my own personal energy. And if somebody wants to come to me and learn a class that I put together, then I should be able to charge for that and be able to live while I'm sharing knowledge. So yeah, I feel like a lot of people don't think that's necessarily a, a, a good thing to do, but I feel like it is. It's just like when you're selling a product in an occult shop as opposed to when you're doing a workshop. People take workshops all the time. So why can't a practitioner charge for the time that they took to create a program that people see value in?
Yep. Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think this gets a little tricky because people can get taken advantage of so easily. I mean, you see all the scams on Instagram and other social media platforms where psychics are not really psychics and they're just trying to scam people out of money, which is extremely frustrating. But just because there are scammers out there, honestly, there are scammers in every single industry. And it doesn't mean that there aren't some other people that are deserving of making a profit off this knowledge. And it doesn't have to be a bad or a negative thing. I worked for years learning this knowledge, you know, I worked really hard to get where I'm at with my magical practice. And yes, I absolutely am going into this to help people. And I want to teach people because it's fun and fulfilling for me. But I also need to pay my bills, and what else do you expect me to do? Like, you can't have your cake and eat it too, I guess. You need to make a living somehow. And I would eventually love to help coach people in the world of the occult and have that be my day job. But again, that's like going back to, can I take a profit for offering some sort of spiritual services? What's the ethics behind that? And I think that also goes back to uh almost like the church days, where they were trying to control people and control the masses and tell them you're not allowed to take a profit for anything spiritual related. And I think that was more malicious in intent than anything. So I don't know, I think that you can take a profit for it. If you're working really hard, you're helping people, I don't see any problem with that.
Yeah, exactly. And how else does a practice grow or expand or be shared if it's not being worked upon and built upon by leaders in the community? And those leaders need to make a living just like anyone else. And I believe as long as you're not taking advantage of people, and you are definitely trying to give back to the community in ways of knowledge, building up, spreading awareness of certain things, and even maybe rebuilding parts of the community. Because I know Scarlett, what's her name? You might know her. She's another pagan practitioner.
I feel like I know who you're talking about, but I forgot her last
Blonde
YouTube name.
hair. Yes.
Yes.
I'll put it in the show notes and maybe on the screen when I remember it. But she wants to actually rebuild temples eventually one day. I've seen a lot of her live streams, and that is incredible. And how else do you do that but by raising money, just like anyone else? And someone needs to make a living off of what they're doing to build themselves up to that point. So if you're giving back in that way, I think it's awesome.
Yes. Oh, totally agree. I didn't know she was doing that. I do know who you're talking about, and that's really cool. I hope she does do that.
Oh, Ravenswood. Scarlett
Yes.
Ravenswood. I remember.
Yes. Yes, love her. Okay, so my next one is about crystals, because crystals are used a lot now in more, I would say, more new age witchcraft practices. And I use crystals too, by the way. That wasn't meant to be like a diss or anything. I love crystals. Crystals are great. But crystals don't need to be charged under the moonlight or under the sunlight or whatever. Like, I see these posts on social media talking about charging their crystals, and crystals supposedly, although again, there's no objective way to measure this, but they have their own vibration, their own frequency. Each crystal is a little bit different, and they don't necessarily need to be charged. If you are wanting to put a crystal out under the moonlight, it's because you are wanting to charge that crystal with the moonlight and add that extra intention on top of it. Or let's say the moon is in Aries or something, or maybe there's an eclipse, you're wanting to charge that crystal with some extra energy of the moon in Aries or in the eclipse or whatever. But crystals themselves don't need to be charged. And that's something that really irks me, and it drives me insane, that people think that crystals are just dead energy and they don't work unless you charge them under the moonlight. And I'm like, no, they work regardless. Anyways, what are your thoughts?
I definitely agree with that, because why wouldn't you just go stand yourself under the moonlight if you wanted the moon's energy only, and you didn't want something from a crystal, and you just want it to be a vessel? Why can't you be the vessel? So yeah, I always wondered when I first started, like, why do we do that? It's so weird. So I never did, until I decided, oh, I kind of like want that energy here. And then I started using my moon oil because it lasted longer, and I didn't have to like constantly lose that energy when I wanted to change what I was doing with the crystals. So yeah, I definitely agree with that one.
Yay. Okay. I'm glad I'm not alone in that, because I'm just like, what is this misinformation being spread? Stop that right now. Anyways.
Ridiculous, honestly. Okay, so this is something, I guess it depends on which camp you're coming from and in your spell work and how you work. But in my opinion, I feel like I see a lot of people who are working candle magic, particularly, where they are just lighting the darn thing and ignoring it. Now, there are different types of candles where, like this one from House of Intuition, it's meant to be just burnt, right? You can read the smoke, you can read the ash that might come off of it, the way the wax is dripping later, and that's a different kind of candle. The kind that I'm talking about are standalone pillar candles that burn down onto your plate, and they just ignore them. How else are you going to get your information if it's not on your glass? how do you know if your spell worked? Until 6 months down the line, when you're not reading your candles, you're not reading your wax, you're not watching the way the flame is flickering, you're not listening to the popping or the hissing, you're not watching the color of the flames. How do you know if it worked? Why are people doing that? It bothers me.
Okay, you are gonna hate me because I think this is our first disagreement, and I'm so
Oh
here for it.
no.
This is
I'm
so
ready for
good.
it because, like, honestly, change my mind. I would love it.
No, that's how I feel about everything. I'm like, change my mind. Let's have a conversation about it. So I do this, but here's why. Okay, I get what you're saying too, because it's frustrating to me when I watch people. First of all, I can't tell other people what to do in their magical practice. Like, it's going to be effective or it's not. They'll figure it out eventually. But when people are just lighting a candle without charging it with their intention, without raising energy, without putting any effort into it, and then just walking away, I totally get where you're coming from there, because
Yes.
I personally don't see how that would ever be effective. For me, the way that I do candle magic is almost kind of like a set it and forget it type of thing. It's the same way that I go about sigils. So once I activate it, I set it and forget it and leave it and pretend it doesn't exist. But I will say that, so when I'm doing some sort of candle magic, I'm putting a ton of energy into the process of preparing that candle. I am charging it. I am raising a ton of energy. I am anointing it. I'm putting a bunch of herbs on it. I am spending so much time on that candle that when I get to that point where we're at the pinnacle of the spell and I'm lighting the candle, that's when I let it go and I walk away and I let it do its thing. I mean, I don't leave candles totally unattended, just for the record, because that's
Fire
not safe,
safety.
people. Yeah. Fire safety, that's not safe. But for me, I have found that I am a little bit too over analytical. And if I sit and look at the candle and read the wax and look into how it's behaving, I will over analyze it to the point where my spell won't work anymore, because I have psyched myself out to where, oh, well, now it's not going to work because this happened and this happened. So I think it depends on your personality. Knowing that I am an overly analytical type A human being, I have got to walk away, because if I don't walk away, I'm just going to ruin my belief into the ground and then nothing's going to manifest. So I guess that's kind of where I'm coming from.
I like the way that you said that, though, because what I'm speaking of is people just, they're throwing on the oil, they're throwing on the things, and they don't pray over it or infuse it with anything, depending on what the practice looks like. And they just kind of, I have the ingredients and it's like a cake. Done. Throw it in the oven. And it's a little different than that. You have to put the energy somewhere. You can't just think it in your brain and then hope that the candle on outside of your body is going to do it. Now, if you want to work mind magic, like I do a lot, all you need is your brain. You don't need the candle.
Yes.
But yeah, I definitely work like that a lot too. It looks very similar to when I'm doing my ritual stuff, very similar to like a hoodoo practice where you're praying over each item and infusing it and putting energy into each item like a Reiki session. So yes, that I can see. If you're doing that, you don't really need to watch it. But yeah.
Okay, so it sounds like we kind of actually have the same opinion on this then, because I think it's really about the energy and intention that you put into it. And I would agree with you, if you're not sitting down, taking the time to bless it or chant, or you don't even have to chant if you don't like chanting, but whatever, some sort of raising energy and pushing your intention in. I mean, I'm meditating with every single item that goes around my candle, that goes on my candle, in my candle. And if you're not doing that, then I don't think it's going to be as effective, So I think we both agree, slightly different styles, but yes.
Cool.
Woo! Yes.
No spicy fight.
Yeah, no, I don't think we could have a spicy fight if we tried. We're both so open-minded, like, well, I'll change my mind. It's fine.
Okay.
Okay, so my next one was, let's see. Oh, I keep hearing this. All right, this really irks me. So I keep hearing this thing about online covens are not as valid as in-person covens. And I am personally in a hybrid coven. So my coven meets every single week online. And then we also meet a couple times in person each year to do in-person ritual. And I will say that it is very different doing ritual in person. I mean, you can physically feel the energy. It's incredible. It vibrates your whole body. body, it's like a transcendental experience. However, that doesn't make online covens less valid. And I find it really frustrating that we're kind of, I don't know, gatekeeping that a little bit. But it frustrates me because with my online coven, we started out primarily as online and then eventually moved to a space where we were doing more in-person rituals. And you can still develop these deep bonds with other human beings. You can still practice magic through the internet. Surprisingly, in the modern day age, we get on Discord, we do our video calls, and we can still do a ritual. Again, it's not the exact same. Obviously, the energetic is a little bit different, but it's still valid. And I think that we need to normalize online covens a little bit more, especially because it's such an accessibility issue for a lot of people. They don't have a lot of witches in their area. So yeah.
Totally 100% agree. I have not had a lot of experience through covens, although I don't know if I mentioned this to you. I might have. I did kind of accidentally form one in my area through friends. So
Yes.
I I do have one in the development stages. Although I'm still always going to be that individual solo practitioner. But it's nice to have a little bit of icing on the cake and not feel alone for holidays. But yeah, I 100% agree with what you're saying. People need to stop trying to gatekeep the way people practice. If that's the only way that you can find people with like-minded energy that you vibe with, then why not? Like,
Yes.
let it be.
Yes. I think the argument from the other side, just to play devil's advocate for a second, I think the argument is that people would rather call it a circle rather than a coven because it's not really a traditional coven if it's just online. However, I don't know. There's so many different types of covens. How do you define coven and what does that mean to you? There's not just one definition. It's basically just a group of magical practitioners that get together to do magic, right? I mean, that would be my personal definition, I suppose. Maybe people disagree with me, but
I feel like that at that point we're just splitting hairs, just like saying baby witch is like offensive to everybody. I don't care. Most if you're gonna take offense, you're gonna take offense and then just say, hey, I don't like that. And then the person will be like, sorry, bro, I didn't mean to.
yep, exactly. Exactly. Live and let live.
The very last one I did want to get in here because I think it's so controversial is love spells and whether or not they should be done. Because I do believe you can do love spells and it's not going to be a negative thing. I actually did one. And that's how I had my current partner. And it was a huge elaborate ritual and I was very, very invested in it and I really focused on it. And I didn't just pay someone to work that thing for me and do an obsession spell. I did my research. I created the thing myself. And I was able to structure something where I'm not stepping on anybody's free will. I was able to bring them into my life when I am ready for it and they are ready for it. It was basically a petition to their ancestors and to their guides, saying, hey, this is the person now that we've met. I am invested. Are you okay with that? And if so, can you help them get to that place where they're also okay with that? And it was a beautiful thing. It was like a meeting family that you wouldn't normally reach out to. But I definitely believe that love work can work.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought this up because this was actually my last one too to talk about love spells. So it's funny we're in sync here. But I think that people assume when you say love spell that you're trying to do a spell to manipulate somebody else into loving you that maybe potentially doesn't love you. And I think people forget that there are many different types of love spells out there. There's attraction spells, there's self-love spells. You know, it's not always you trying to manipulate another person's free will. And so to say that you don't do love spells or you're so against love spells, I'm like, so you're against self-love spells? How do you really feel about that? I think they can be really powerful. I will say that I did do a spell when I was really young, like 13 or 14. And for the record, I was a terrible witch at that time. Okay, I was 13. I didn't know what I was doing. And I did try to manipulate somebody else into loving me that clearly did not love me. It absolutely backfired. And what happened is I became way more obsessed with that person. It's almost like it backfired onto me and made my feelings magnified, and they still felt the same about me. So I don't particularly recommend doing those types of spells where you're manipulating a specific person to love you that maybe potentially actually doesn't. However, in your case, attraction spells are great. If you are petitioning whomever and then asking the guides to bring this person to you or to attract your ideal partner, they can absolutely say yes or no on their end. Obviously, they still have free will, but I think attraction spells are important. I think self-love spells are important. So yeah, I'm very pro love spell if done in the right way too.
Me too. I feel like a lot of people don't realize that love workings or love spells is an umbrella term for a lot of different types of workings that you can create. And in my opinion, just to play again the devil's advocate, like we like to do, is I feel like all witchcraft is manipulating of energy, whether it's someone else's or the universe's. And it depends on how you go about that. It's just like the treating a knife as either a weapon or a tool. So it's really depending on how you treat it. So I feel like it doesn't matter if you try to manipulate someone's feelings to hire you for a job or to maybe give you a chance on a date. Like, as long as you are not controlling them over a lifelong period, I think it's okay. As long as you're just getting that foot in the door, I think that's okay. And letting the universe play out the way it should afterwards.
I totally agree with you. And I had this conversation, I think maybe like 6 months ago or so. I did a video with Cricket Song on my channel where we talked about love spells, but we talked about love spells from the perspective of manipulating another person's free will. And so in that video, I kind of said something along the lines of, I don't condone it. I'm not really here for it. You can do whatever you want in your own magical practice. I don't care. I just personally wouldn't recommend it based on my own experience. It was terrible. And also, is that really love at that point when you're manipulating someone else? Probably not. Just going to throw that out there. But in this case, we are talking about love spells as a whole umbrella term for all these different types of spells that you can do. So yes, I think we need to give love spells a little bit better of a reputation than they currently have.
Definitely, because I feel like in social media and in movies and Hollywood, they always just see the scandalous side of it. And because that's what's entertaining, obviously, that's what people are going to watch. But that's not how it is in reality. Yes, it's a situation that may happen if you do something wrong. Like it may have happened to you, or it could happen to the person you're practicing it on. And that's not good either. But uh most of the time it really is just someone working a love spell on them or love glamour magic or um working with Aphrodite to bring more love into their family or like working with love as a community. There's so many different types of love and it doesn't have to be just on the one-on-one individual. I think what we get stuck on is just focusing on love as a manipulative thing. And I think it also kind of like harkens back to the day of when people would picture women or cis women as the devil or people who worship the devil, and also they're very oversexed and that they need to be controlled. And I feel like it's being pushed on us because a lot of the community is female or identifies as female. And I feel like that is another way of kind of controlling someone from being able to access what they want in life. Yes, if you feel like a working that you create can create something that is happiness for yourself and for someone else, by all means do it. Just don't manipulate in the way of cutting off someone's autonomy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep, I agree. I love how you said that. That's so true. It was a way of making women look terrible for just leaning into our needs, of wanting to be loved and cared for. But all of a sudden that makes us terrible and we're manipulative and whatever. I digress. I have done love spells in my current relationship with my partner's consent, of course. And sometimes it's more like implied consent because at this point we've been together for 5 years and, it is what it is. But let's say we're fighting or something, or we're disagreeing about something. I may do a love spell to kind of help the vibe get back to where I want it to be, and help us get back to those loving feelings towards each other. So it's not always a bad manipulative thing. Sometimes it can be used to reconcile a situation. Obviously, have good communication and fix the problems. But yeah, it can
Sometimes
still be
it's needed to get to that point though, because
helpful.
depending on the situation, you might not want to be talking to each other for a long time and then things compound and get worse. Whereas if you do something like a love spell that helps open communication or helps clear the air, raise vibration, you're able to get to that point a lot faster before things fester or become worse and you become bitter towards each other. So I definitely
Yeah.
love that you say that you do that, because it's just like cleansing a room. You're cleansing your auras with each other. Whenever you have a negative interaction with a person, you can feel that on your like astral body. You can feel it on your aura, and it sticks with you. It's something that can build up over time with trauma, and it just stays with you and causes so many different like health issues, in my opinion. And I think it's really important just to clear that off either semi-regularly or whenever a situation arises. It's really important. It's very good magical hygiene.
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes you have to remember why you love each other in the first place. Because, I mean, when you're in a long-term relationship, sometimes you get to those points where you're like, I don't like you right now. I really don't. And so you kind of have to go back to, this is why I love this person. This is why we're together. Okay, let's sit down and have a conversation about this now. So, yeah.
Yeah, fabulous. I feel like we're so on tandem. Like there was no arguments.
I know. I'm kind of disappointed. I'm just
I
kidding.
know. I was ready to debate.
Yes. Yes.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me. I really enjoyed this. It was so much fun. Would you like to let the listeners know where to find you online and anything that might be coming up for you currently that you want to let people know about?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
So my YouTube handle is Ivy the Occultist, and it's the same on Instagram as well. Although I just created that Instagram account this last July, so it's still a fairly new account, but it is me. It's not like a spam account or something. I'm the only one. So, but yeah, I post educational content as well as some fun videos here and there. I would say most of my videos are educational content, although sometimes I just want to do a fun vlog every now and then because it's for me, it's like a passion project for myself. But yeah, I guess as far as projects go, I post a video at least once a week, I would say, as I want to, I guess, at no particular day or anything, and trying to be on podcasts and say hello to everybody and all that stuff. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. And if you guys enjoyed the show, make sure you definitely comment if you're on YouTube and let us know any of your most unpopular opinions, if you agree with any of the ones that we were talking about at all. And if you're on the podcast episodes, definitely you can just comment on the review section. And I wouldn't mind it either if you put on a review and let me know how you feel about the show. And with that said, I will let you go, Ivy, and I hope you have an amazing day.
Thank you, Rhiannon. Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.
Bye.